everybody. This is Dr. Lori Shemek.
And I'm Omar Cumberbatch. You're listening to This Podcast Burns Fat. Hey, Lori, how are you today?
Hi, Omar. Doing wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, having this heat wave, 101 today.
Oh, yeah?
And
Ugh.
yeah, and it's like ridiculous. So, but I remember in the winter, I was saying it was, -5.
I still can't get over that Texas has these crazy
I know.
swings. And I guess that's
Isn't it
just my
crazy?
yeah, ignorance from New York. I thought, that's not completely hot 24/7.
Oh, yeah, like
No.
desert. People think it's desert and it's not.
Yeah, yeah, no, it
The
is
west
fascinating.
side of Texas is desert, but the east side from the central to east is all trees and stuff.
Wow.
But yeah.
Well, hang in there,
All
it's
right,
it'll
hanging like a
pass.
monkey.
Yeah, so today we have a repeat guest. He's been on the show before, Dr. Neal Barnard, and it was a really fascinating show because
Hmm.
I think this is one of those instances where we didn't necessarily agree with a lot of the things philosophically
Hmm.
about his new book, The Power Foods Diet, which is really interesting. And the guy is
Yeah.
armed, and I want to give him a lot of credit for this, with a lot of studies, a lot of evidence that backs up his particular claims to this diet, which is fascinating. It was just interesting that I know that it went against a lot of things that traditionally we don't necessarily subscribe to on the show. And that also
Right.
happens, I guess, whenever we do have a person who comes on the show who has a plant-based perspective to certain things. And it's just like the elimination of certain food groups, I think overall was what happened to like say, wow, we
Hmm.
gotta, this is an interesting debate and we gotta let our audience kind of figure out how they feel and where they stand on these particular diets.
Right. And yeah, he's a New York Times bestselling author, and he is the author of Power Foods for the Brain. And this book is the Power Foods Diet. And so he has in it research showing that it can reduce your appetite, trap calories so they're not flushed away and cannot be absorbed. And number three, increase the body's ability to burn calories for about 3 hours after each meal. So I think you'll find it very interesting. It's a different interview in terms of the content of what we typically put on here, but as always, we want you to have exposure to everything that's out there, so you can make the best decisions for yourself.
Yeah, amen to that. And yeah, I hope that
Yeah.
everybody enjoys it. We'd love your feedback. Definitely open up this
Yes.
conversation because these are things that, it's very fascinating, especially that concept of like trapping the calories and stuff like that
Hmm.
was really fascinating. So like I said, I got a different perspective of things and I'm really interested to hear what the audience thinks
I
as
would
well.
love to hear it. Yeah.
All right, so let's jump into the show.
Okay. Sounds good.
Hey, Dr. Barnard, welcome back to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing great. It's great to be with you again.
Well, it's great to be with you too. Thank you for stopping by. We are really excited about your brand new book out, The Power Foods Diet. And it would be wonderful if you could just give us an idea of, why you were motivated to write the book, and an overview, I guess. What
Yeah.
inspired you?
Yeah, especially
Yeah,
also like what's been cooking besides the book, of course, as well. Like since we last spoke, so it's been about 2 years now, and yeah, just fill us in on a little bit of all of that.
great, super. There has been a real shift in ways to lose weight. The old idea was you count calories and you kind of starve yourself, and that gets old by Wednesday. You're ready to eat this sofa. It doesn't
Yeah.
really work so well. And then people would go low carb, but that's not entirely satisfactory for most people. And there was a big shift, maybe in the last 10 years or so, looking at dietary patterns, not so much what you're eating, or not so much how much you're eating, but more what you're eating in general. Because, for example, a plant-based dietary pattern tends to lead to weight loss compared with an animal-based dietary pattern, that kind of thing. However, in just the past few years, certain specific foods have jumped out, and we've sort of suspected that a number of them, there's certain spices, certain foods, would help with metabolism, would help tame the appetite. But the science wasn't really there, and now it is. And we've got a number of foods that I call power foods because they do one of three things. They either reduce your appetite naturally so you don't overeat. Some of them actually in your digestive tract work to trap calories so that you can't absorb them, and they carry the calories out with the waste and you flush them down the toilet. It's amazing. The third thing is some of them are metabolism boosters. So I got excited about it, and I realized how easy this makes weight loss for people. And we put them into recipes, but also tips for what to choose when you're at a restaurant, or if you eat convenience foods and that kind of thing, to just make it easy for people. So that's the Power Foods diet.
Well, that's wonderful. Yeah. And is it mostly plant-based? I'm assuming it is plant-based.
Yeah. For example, the researchers at Harvard looked in 2015, they published a study looking at which foods really stimulate weight loss. And it was kind of a revolutionary way of thinking about things. They had more than 100,000 research participants, and they tracked their food intake and discovered that the more people ate of certain foods, the more weight they would lose, which is counterintuitive. You're eating more, but you're losing more. And the answer is yes. And to give you an example, blueberries were at the top of the list, and their cousins like raspberries and strawberries, which we think is due to the anthocyanins, perhaps, which are the natural colors of a blueberry. These pigments seem to have that effect. But they also found that cruciferous vegetables, green vegetables, certain melons, citrus fruits, legumes, all seem to stimulate weight loss. And there are many, many others. And there are certain spices like ginger or hot peppers that do this. And so our job is just to say, okay, I want this to not just be a little effect, because there are people who need to lose 50 pounds, 70 pounds, 100 pounds. So let's make this really work. So we developed recipes that include the power foods in a really powerful way, but they also have to be foods that are bang up terrific and familiar. And so that's what it's about.
So, Dr. Barnard, I want to kind of skip, because this was the thing that fascinated me when I was looking at your book, and you kind of mentioned it about the concept of foods that trap calories so that they're flushed away and can't be absorbed. So I know we're going to talk about other things too, but I got to get that one out of the way first, because that's, to me, the most exciting part of this diet.
Well, it was an amazing study. 2017 is where this was really nailed down. This was Tufts University in Boston. Terrific research university. They brought in individuals, and half of them were asked to consume white bread, white rice, foods where the fiber has been removed. The other half had whole grain bread and brown rice. In other words, the fiber is still there. And they discovered that fiber, yes, fiber keeps you regular. Yes, certain fibers will lower cholesterol. But they discovered something new, which is that some high fiber foods, the fiber acts like a little microscopic set of sponges that go down your digestive tract. They find calories you haven't absorbed yet. They capture them, they carry them out with the waste, and you flush them down the toilet, as I said. You can't absorb those calories. And they quantified how many calories you would lose this way. And the answer was about 100, so you can't absorb those calories at all. And that's not huge, but that's a good start. And then the appetite taming effect is good for an additional 200 to 300 calories. And then the metabolism boosting effect can be up to 200 calories. So you put this all together, and you're talking about knocking off, 500 calories a day or something like that. And the weight loss just kicks in. Now, I hasten to say, exercise is a great thing. I'm all for it, and I do it myself. But in our research studies, we ask our participants not to change their exercise patterns, because we want to see what the foods will do on their own, so that there's nothing confounding it. And we've discovered that these foods work regardless of whether you exercise or not. So exercise is great, but for a person who can't, because of a disability, or you're just maybe very overweight so that it's really hard to do exercise, you still get the benefit of the foods. They still work.
Do you think that possibly part of the reason that there is fat loss is due to the reduction in inflammation from the anthocyanins or polyphenols, other polyphenols?
It could well be, and it's a fascinating thing you're saying, because anthocyanins, it's the purple in a blueberry. But there's actually a whole painting box of anthocyanins. The red color in a strawberry is a related anthocyanin. And in fact, in the autumn, when the leaves turn different colors, those are anthocyanins too. There's a whole range of them. Now, I hope people will not eat the autumn leaves. But on the other hand, you can eat a strawberry and you can eat a blueberry. So anyway, they are powerful antioxidants. They knock out free radicals. They are anti-inflammatory. But researchers in the UK did a cool follow-up study. They brought in 2,700 identical twins, and everyone got a DEXA scan, which shows you body fat. It shows you your body composition, including where your body fat is. And they found that the twin who ate the most anthocyanin-rich foods had less body fat overall, and specifically less abdominal fat compared with her genetically identical sister. And then researchers said, okay, swell. How about other antioxidants? Take orange. That's beta carotene in a carrot or in a sweet potato or in a papaya or a mango. And they discovered that that also seems to have a weight loss effect as well. And it could well be that the reason that you gave is it. But I should emphasize, with some of them, we've identified that there's a weight loss effect, but it's taken a longer time to figure out why is it? Is it reducing our appetite? Is it increasing our metabolism? Is it that it's anti-inflammatory? For some of them, we just know they work, but we're trying to figure out why.
It's really fascinating because I know that, especially what you're saying now, it's like it's kind of going against the current trend, which we've all been through many different trends of dieting over the years. The carbohydrate effect and the concern, and like it's something that people are really, really hesitant nowadays to get behind. How do you address that when you're selling this particular type of diet?
Well, it's not my job to sell it. It's our job to test it to make sure it works. So when we do research studies, people come in and we test different approaches. And what we find runs exactly counter to the carbophobia that is so common, which is that people who eat the most carbohydrates lose the most weight. Now, let me be clear. You can definitely lose weight by avoiding carbohydrate. Because carbohydrates are 50 or 60% of what people eat. So if you eat no bread, no pasta, no potatoes, no rice, no fruit, if you take all these things out, and you don't make up for it with other things, people will lose weight. We don't recommend that approach. And we take a different approach where if, let's say, we increase fruits, vegetables, including starchy vegetables, beans, pasta, these kinds of things, but we're excluding the really fatty foods. From a biochemical standpoint, fat has 9 calories in a gram. Even good fats like olive oil, 9 calories in a gram, but carbohydrate has only 4. So when we boost carbohydrate, particularly fiber, which is a special kind of carbohydrate, we see really good weight loss, and all the side effects are good, cholesterol drops and so forth. And let me paint a picture of how we would do this. I mentioned anthocyanins, blueberries, associated with weight loss. And at first, nobody knew why, but they just were. Cinnamon is also associated with weight loss, as are some other spices like ginger and hot peppers. But with cinnamon, there's an aldehyde in the cinnamon which attaches to a gut receptor that triggers adrenaline release. So your metabolism increases after the meal. That's what, and you're burning calories. And in a double-blind study, researchers found that cinnamon on a daily basis could knock off about 7.5 pounds over about a 16-week period. And
that's incredible.
That was with about a teaspoon of cinnamon. So what we did is we said, okay, let's say we take French toast, and I'm going to not slather it with butter. I'm going to make it a nice French toast, and I'm going to put on some cinnamon and a blueberry syrup. You can see where I'm going. It's I'm defatting it. It's carbs indeed, but it's healthy, complex carbohydrate. And I'm putting in the other power foods, the cinnamon and the blueberries. And it's America's favorite breakfast. and you're not counting calories, you're not worried about the carbohydrate, but you will discover that your weight just goes down and down and down when these are the meals you choose.
Well, following up with that, then, do you believe that too many carbs, processed carbs, lead to insulin resistance?
No. Well, yes and no. Not in general, no. And the reason I'll say that, well, we put these to the test. We brought in 64 overweight postmenopausal women and found that when they eliminated animal products and kept oils really low, their insulin sensitivity would improve markedly and they would lose weight. But let me give it, on the other hand, there's two ways that the answer to your question could be, yeah, it's a big issue. One is if a person eats a whole lot of refined sugar, and if you're already insulin resistant, that sugar's got nowhere to go. It can't go into your muscles because your muscles are insulin resistant. It ends up in the liver and you're just gonna make fat out of it. So that's not good. But the big thing, the big reason that carbs got a bad name is that baked potato, which went into your oven, and you cooked it up nice, and it has this nice smell, and it doesn't have a whole lot of calories. And that maligned baked potato, which has more protein than a large egg. Yes, it does. But people assume that potato is gonna cause problems. We take it out of the oven, and what do we do with it? We put a tablespoon of butter on top and some sour cream and some bacon bits and cheese doodles, and it's the toppings that are the problem. Some people will take rice and cover it with gravy. They'll take pasta. And if you take that very same pasta, but you put ground beef sauce on the top, that's fatty. That's a lot of calories. You could put extra virgin olive oil on it, a better quality of fat, but still really dense in calories, or a light marinara, which is chunky vegetables and tomato sauce and that kind of thing. And you'll see that the calorie content of it dramatically different.
So, in your opinion, we should try to avoid fats generally and stick to the carbohydrates. Is that something that you recommend?
I wouldn't put it that way because you don't go to the store and buy a pack of carbohydrate, and you don't go to the store and buy I hope, a pack of fats. What we consume is fruits and vegetables and whole grains and beans. And these foods have traces of fat in them. So if broccoli, for example, you would think there's no fat in broccoli. Send it to a laboratory. And they'll tell you it's about maybe 7% fat as a percentage of calories. Not much, but it's there. And the fat is proportionately very high in omega-3, the alpha linolenic acid, the basic omega-3. So where we run into trouble isn't with the fats that are in these foods naturally. Where we run into trouble is by pouring fat onto our foods or selecting meats, cheeses, other foods that have no complex carbohydrate at all. They have no fiber at all, and they contain a lot of fat in them. Cheese may be the biggest problem because let's face it, it's addicting. It may smell like old socks, but people get hooked on it. The average American consumes about 70,000 calories of it every day. Not every day. I'm sorry, 70,000 calories per year. So it's a lot.
Oh yeah, I was addicted to cheese, so I know.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
It is, but the foods that I'm suggesting are great. I mentioned French toast with a blueberry syrup. Let's say it's lunchtime, you have a lentil soup or a minestrone or a sweet potato bisque or something. Mango dal, depending on if you have sort of international taste. Let's say you've been avoiding pasta because it's refined carbohydrate. Well, let's bring the pasta back and put on an arrabbiata sauce. That's Italian for angry, but to a chef, arrabbiata means spicy. Can be wonderful. Or a chili. I've got a Southwest chili that's great. A delicious carrot cake. We'll make a triple berry sorbet, which is really fun. You take some blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, take a little banana, a little bit of cherry juice or cranberry juice, you whip it together, and you freeze it, and it becomes this just killer sorbet that's light but really delicious and just looks beautiful. So you can have fun with these foods. And for people who've been afraid of carbohydrate, for people who thought like the only way I can lose weight is to run 3 miles every day or two, it's sensible to exercise. But let's get the power foods working for you. I don't ask people to believe it. What I ask them to do is to try it. because that's what we do in our research studies. We've tested this in thousands of people, and it works virtually in every case.
How would somebody navigate this, the power foods diet with type 2 diabetes?
Oh, I'm glad you're asking that. We're doing 2 diabetes studies right now, and we've done many. It was 2003 that NIH first funded us to try to find a better diet for diabetes. And it's a very different model. The old-fashioned approach and the incorrect approach is that sugar causes diabetes. Sugar is not the cause of diabetes. The cause of diabetes it starts as insulin resistance. Insulin resistance starts from fat in foods that we eat. The fat particles get into your muscle cells. And as these microscopic fat particles build up in muscles and build up in your liver cells, then the glucose that's building up in your blood can no longer get out of the blood. It can't get into the muscles where it belongs. Glucose, or blood sugar, is good. It is supposed to be the fuel for your muscles. It's supposed to give your muscles energy. It's supposed to go to your brain. That's good. The problem in diabetes and the problem in insulin resistance, which starts it off, is that the glucose cannot get into your muscle cells because they're filled with fat. And this is not thigh fat or belly fat. This is microscopic fat particles, which in research studies we refer to as intramyocellular lipid, but it's just fat inside muscle cells. And we know it's there because you can see it on magnetic resonance spectroscopy. We measure it. So what do? If I want to reduce that, and let's say I can have a person get rid of their diabetes, I would say eat all the fruit you want. Eat the whole grains, eat vegetables, eat beans, take a vitamin B12 supplement. Everybody needs that. Get away from the meat entirely, and the cheese, and get away from animal products, and keep oils extremely low. What have I just done? I put you on a diet that has really no added fat in it, and it has just traces of healthy fats. And what we discover over time is that the fat starts draining out of your cells, and your insulin resistance will be replaced bit by bit by insulin sensitivity. And people do really well, and it is the diet of choice for type 2 diabetes. Now, don't get me wrong, you are eating more carbs than before, and you're very insulin resistant in the beginning days. So you will see that your blood sugars are going to go up a little bit for some people, depending on what they eat. And then we just kind of power through that. And pretty soon they start going the opposite direction. And that's when we started seeing diabetes improve to the extent that you can reduce your medicines, sometimes get off your medicines, sometimes the disease is just gone.
I've seen time and time again people that do, say, a keto diet or very low carb diet, really reverse that trajectory of type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, and especially insulin resistance, what do you think about that? And I know, in pairing that with your, I know you use cornflakes, is that right? As an example of a healthy breakfast. And so just curious, because it is a refined, somebody with type 2 diabetes eating that who's already insulin resistant, how would that work?
They don't have to have cornflakes, but if they want to, they can.
So it's okay.
Sure. I mean, it is a processed food. I mean, you're right about that. And you're better off. The more it's a whole food, the better it is. I'm not pushing that. But you'd be better off with oatmeal or something like that. But cornflakes that could be all right for a person. And people cannot believe that they're allowed to eat these foods again. Now, a low carbohydrate diet, when people do lose weight with it because they're avoiding so many foods, the weight loss is good, kind of no matter how you get there. But one of the reasons we're really concerned about that, and the reason we don't use that approach, is that although weight loss usually causes cholesterol to drop, almost no matter how you lose weight, but for about maybe 1 in 3 low carbohydrate dieters, it goes the opposite direction. So cholesterol is going up. And when a person has type 2 diabetes, what is going to kill that person is not a high blood sugar or a low blood sugar. It's going to be cardiovascular disease. And so we want to make sure that their cholesterol do not go up and that their blood pressure does not go up. And so that's why we focus on an entirely plant-based diet, because I want to reverse their cardiovascular lesions. But I mean, your points are good ones, because people are nervous about carbohydrate, they're nervous about processed foods. And we sometimes have to explain to them that the most processed food in the world is a chicken. Because what is a chicken? A chicken is a biological machine to whom you fed on a farm corn. You fed that to the chicken, and the chicken's saliva has amylase enzymes that start breaking down the sugars in it. If there's pepsin and stomach acid to break apart the proteins, the fats are rearranged. This chicken's body is a factory that converts corn into muscle and egg. And then you sell those products, and they are highly, highly processed. The proteins and amino acids are all rearranged. The saturated fat content is more than doubled. So we view animal products as the most ultra processed foods that there are.
Yeah, that's interesting concept, the way that you broke it down. I know that again in your book you were discussing different types of foods that really ramp up different things. And one of the things that I was really interested in this concept, it was that there are foods out there that increase the body's ability to burn calories even up to 3 hours after a meal. Can you tell us about those?
Yeah, we recently published this in JAMA Network Open in 244 research participants, but we had done this earlier. The first time we did this was back in 2005, published in the American Journal of Medicine. We brought in 64 women. They were all after menopause. They had all done Atkins, South Beach, Jenny Craig, Nutrisystem, Medifast. They'd done everything. And like everybody, they had some initial success, and then it didn't work as time went on. So what we asked them to do instead was to be randomly assigned to either a conventional diet, which was more chicken and fish, less red meat, reduce oil, that kind of stuff. And the experimental diet we were testing was no animal products, but keeping oils really low as well. And those were the only rules for this particular diet. And we said, don't worry about calories, don't worry about carbs, just eat these. And I have to confess that I forgot about Twizzlers. Twizzlers are red licorice. They sell at the 7-Eleven.
Right.
And one of the research participants reminded me about a month into the study that Twizzlers are vegan. And I said, no, let me look at the package. And it's true. There's no animal products in there, and there's no added oil. It's just sugary, starchy, artificially colored junk. But when you do a research study, you set your rules, and you have to stick with them. So our low-fat, vegan, Twizzler-fueled participants set off on their path to the unknown. But anyway, they lost weight. I mean, their insulin resistance melted away. Their insulin sensitivity improved. They lost about a pound per week, week after week. We did this study for more than 2 years. They never regained the weight. But to answer your question, we measure their metabolism. And you do it you give everybody a test meal. So it's exactly the same meal for everybody. And then you track how much oxygen their body is consuming minute by minute. That shows you their metabolic rate. And you do this with a special mask, so they look kind of like an astronaut, and you're tracking their oxygen consumption, their carbon dioxide output. And what we found is if you give these participants butter or really any pure fat, nothing happens. It doesn't boost the metabolism. It slides in your body, and you really don't get a burn from it. You give that same person a meal with carbohydrate and protein in it. So what does that mean? That means a bean or lentil soup or something like that. Plant proteins, plant carbohydrates. Their metabolism shoots up, and it goes up. It's higher than it was before for 3 or 4 hours after the meal. But then what you do is and that's good in and of itself. However, what you discover is 2 things. There are certain foods that seem to cause that to happen even more. But also, the more a person sticks with it, if they do this day after day, their after meal metabolic boost gets stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. Because what's happening is the fat is coming out of their cells. The fat is getting out of their muscles. The muscles are able to suck the glucose right out of the blood and burn it. And so their metabolism, their after meal metabolism, is more efficiently increased the longer they do this. Now, it's not a dramatic difference. It's maybe 15% higher calorie burn, but you do it after breakfast, you do it after lunch, you do it again after dinner, and it adds up. And I do not care how old you are. I do not care how much body fat you have now. I don't care whether you exercise or don't. I don't care if your metabolism has slowed over time and you're feeling it. Your metabolism will rise with these changes, and you will see it. And we test it, and you can look at the numbers. We share the numbers with every participant who comes in, and they can't believe that at age 67, their metabolism is more like it was when they were 17.
Wow, that's fantastic. Um, so what about, I know that you like oatmeal. It's, a recommendation in your book as a choice. What about the glyphosate that's so prevalent now? That bothers me. You know, the that so, we know that glyphosate essentially is patented as an antibiotic. So when you eat it, you're essentially killing off some really healthy gut bugs.
Yeah, I think people have been really overly vigorous in their use of chemistry. And you see this in agriculture
Yeah.
all over the place. You see it in foods that people raise for consumption. You see it when I go home to North Dakota, where I grew up. You go down a highway, and all on one side of the road is corn, and the other side of the highway is
Mm-hmm.
soybeans. And every plant you notice is identical, and you think,
Right.
what is this? And what this is something that no human is going to eat. That's cattle feed. We grow GMO soy, GMO corn. It's not made into tofu. That's organic soy you're going to use for that. This is cattle feed, chicken feed, hog feed. And the chemicals bioconcentrate there too. So I agree with you. I really think that we should be really promoting agriculture without all the use of these chemicals.
Mm-hmm. And organic doesn't prevent that, does it? Because there's that runoff factor.
We do the best we can.
Right.
One beautiful thing about organic, let's say you're going to go to the store and you're going to get some tofu or some soy milk. If it's marked organic, it cannot by law be GMO. Um,
Ah.
and so anyway, so it's a good idea. You want to eat as
Mm-hmm.
clean as you possibly can.
Right. Right.
That said, if you're going into a store and your choice is spam versus produce, that
Mm-hmm.
you're better off with the plant-based foods anyway, because
Mm-hmm.
what are animals eating? Animals are machines that bioconcentrate things, particularly fish. But it's not only the fish, it's animal products in general.
Well, that leads into my next question. Do you worry about the omega-3 6 ratio? That's so important to keep balanced.
Do I worry? I don't
Yeah,
worry about.
in
No, no.
terms of because you're not getting the DHA, EPA, and the direct sources. I know there's algae, which is one direct source, which is plant-based. And then, but the ALA, there's iffy conversions of it for humans.
Yeah, you could shut the conversion right down. What Mother Nature had in mind is that you would eat plants, and you would eat some broccoli, and you would
Mm-hmm.
eat fruit and things, and that trace of ALA, it would be more than a trace because you're eating a lot of it. I mean, look at your cousins up in a tree. We are not cats and dogs. We're related to chimpanzees and gorillas and orangutans. We are great apes. Look at them. They eat massive amounts of plant foods. And
Mm-hmm.
that ALA that goes into the chimpanzee's body or the gorilla's body, it goes into your body. And as you said, you have enzymes that convert it into longer chain molecules. But you can shut that conversion down pretty quickly by consuming a lot of competing fat. And so when people do
Oh,
that,
interesting. Okay.
then I mean, you only got a certain
Mm.
set of enzymes to do it. And if you preoccupy those enzymes with all the other guests you invited to your party, you're going to have more trouble making the longer chain fatty acids. And that's when people say, okay, well, I guess I got to go to the store and I got to buy some DHA and EPA supplements. And there are vegan DHA and EPA supplements. So you can buy that if you want to, but you can also get the competing fats out of your diet. But the point that I'm making is that up until now, people have found it hard to lose weight. And they felt they've got to think about so many zillions of things. And they've got to count calories, they've got to get on a food scale, and they've got to worry about this and that and the other thing. And what I'm trying to do with the Power Foods diet is say, we've done research, we know it works, and certain foods don't really love you back very much. They're going to shut down your calorie burn, but there are other foods that will help you.
Yeah.
And so I worked with Dustin Harder and Lindsay Nixon, who are the two greatest recipe developers in the world. And if you've seen the book, The pictures,
Yes, I
I mean,
am, as we speak, I'm looking at the pictures and they're
just,
just beautiful. Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
I've been checking them out for the last couple days and just really beautiful and healthy
the
too. Yeah.
yeah, the foods are great. And we made them in three categories. One is convenient. This is for a person who's allergic to cooking. Say, I'm never going to do it. I'm going to get spaghetti sauce out of the jar. I'm going to open a can of split pea soup. That's fine. Then we have others that we call easy, which require a little bit of preparation, but not much. The recipes are fairly quick. And there are a few there that are elegant. They're not necessarily time consuming, but they impress the heck out of your friends. So this would be your French toast with a little mint leaf and maybe 3 different berries to top it, a little confectioner's sugar kind of dribbling down the side. You know, you can make it look like that. And we have quite a few of those too. So my goal is to help a person focus on not so much on what you're depriving yourself of. Forget that. Let's focus on the foods you're bringing in and how they're going to help your body. And then when a person wants to try it, we just take 1 week of testing out the foods, figuring out the ones you like. Then 3 weeks, put it to work. And you will be amazed by the fact that you lose weight without really trying. The foods do it. And secondly, your tastes change so that you discover you're not really a chicken wings kind of person anymore. And there are foods that are healthy that you actually like. And there are things you hadn't discovered in the store. And there are books and there are websites. There's a whole world out there that's just been waiting for you to try using the power of foods. And it's liberating and it's fun.
So, Doc, I think I just have one more question, and I really want to give you a lot of credit because you do definitely highlight things that are not trending, right? Like as far as, like the fats in the diets that are really prevalent right now and all these different types of things that you did mention. What is your opinion, to wrap up, on like intermittent fasting specifically? And does it
I
play a
think it's
role in
okay.
your diet?
I think it's okay. I don't think it's necessary, but I think it's fine. And some people really like it. And it's done in different ways. For some people, it means nothing more than after 5 o'clock, I'm not going to eat anymore till tomorrow morning. Fair enough. Your gut is probably glad to have the rest. For some people, it means 2 days a week. I eat substantially less. That's okay too. Where it runs into trouble when we've seen it is when a person is anticipating the fast. Okay, Thursday, Friday, I'm not going to eat much. On Wednesday, we find that they sometimes are anticipating it by eating a little extra.
Yes,
And
exactly.
then on Saturday, when they come off the fast, it's like, hooray,
Gluttony.
And so it works like for a couple of weeks, and then the anticipation factor causes it to kind of grind to a halt. I'm not
Derail.
opposed to it at all. It's okay, but I don't think it's necessary. And I don't do intermittent breathing, so I'm not sure I want to do intermittent fasting either. Your body is designed, if you give it the right foods, to get your body into a good shape and a good size and to keep you healthy.
Well said. So, Doc, you've been
Yes,
fantastic again. We appreciate you coming back on the show.
sure do.
We want to give you an opportunity, of course, to have the audience have the ability to check out where you are and where to get this new book and, your website, social media handles, anything that we could keep up with all the great stuff you're doing out there.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, the Power Foods Diet, it's on Amazon now and everywhere else that books are sold. And I hope people will pick it up. And my name is Barnard, Neal Barnard, Barnard, and the Power Foods Diet is something that I hope people won't just look at and try. But more important than any of that, I hope we'll remember that our family members have health issues too. And they also have personal struggles about, well, I'm hooked on this, I'm hooked on that, I'm a little reluctant to try something. So make my brownies and share them, please.
Sounds like a plan to me. Thank you so
Definitely.
much, Dr. Barnard. We really appreciate you stopping by today.
Great talking with you again.
Take care.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You too.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of This Podcast Burns Fat. We're so excited to have you as a listener, and we're hoping that you really enjoyed the content as well. And if you did, please run over to iTunes and provide a rating and or review. It will go a long way in helping us continuously build our listenership up so that we can provide you with excellent content regarding fat loss, weight management, and just an overall healthy lifestyle. Thanks so much. Have a great night.